Today we're going to be discussing the truth behind EV slander, the real reason individuals detest the production of electric vehicles. And maybe if I use big words, the algorithm will finally push my content. Alright, so if I'm being honest with you, I'm not very good at the whole video editing thing. So please watch this video all the way through, leave a comment at the end, give me some criticism. I'd like to know what I can do better. Ladies and gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, I don't have to tell you that over the last few years, EV popularity has skyrocketed. The market went from basically nothing to manufacturers scrambling to produce in under 10 years, which is something we haven't seen since the release of Apple's first computer. And if you don't believe me, when the Apple I personal computer first released, it basically kicked us into the age of technology that we know today. The reason for that was, well, the same reason people want electric cars so badly. It made their lives easier. The older generation swore they'd never catch on. They claimed it was a fad that would end before the decade. Now, almost 50 years later, everything and everyone has a computer. And I can almost guarantee that you're watching this on a personal nightmare box. A nightmare box that brings you my hellish content. So please like and subscribe. And this is because the personal computer revolutionized how people communicated and shared information. So it only makes sense to assume that the electric vehicle is revolutionizing the transportation industry. For the last 110 years, auto manufacturers have been largely striving to produce the best and most advanced cars to fit the current culture and generation. And that's because those are the people buying the cars. It only makes sense that in the age of technology, we would come to this milestone. However, the difference between the invention of the personal computer and the mass introduction of electric vehicles is the computer wasn't being sold to consumers based on a lie. Look, you don't like Elon Musk because he said mean things. I don't like Elon Musk because he also convinced you that Teslas are good. We are not the same. In 2017, if you asked the average EV owner why they bought their car, they'd give you some answer about it being eco-friendly. But 7 years later today, we've learned that's not exactly accurate. With the exposure of open-air lithium and cobalt mines in Africa coming to light, and the realization that harvesting and shipping these materials alone consumes hundreds of thousands of gallons of fuel a month, it's safe to say not only is it not very eco-friendly, but it's arguably not ethical. And that's just the materials for the battery. That does not include the hundreds of gallons of oil needed to produce the plastics and other materials that go into every compartment and every component of the modern electric vehicle. And all of these parts and pieces are made in factories all across the globe. Then they're wrapped in more plastic, placed into cardboard boxes, loaded onto a plane or a boat before they get sent to another factory to get installed into the car. And one of the ironic things is some of these parts and pieces go to multiple factories, get wrapped in plastic multiple times, get put in multiple I'm going on a tangent. You get the point. It's not an efficient process. So to claim that somehow these electric vehicles are better for our dying planet is absolutely ridiculous. Oh, but Mr. Boost, that's true for all new modern vehicles. That's not just EVs. Well, you're right. Every car in production today requires parts that get shipped from other countries. And arguably, some of these cars themselves get shipped from other countries because it's cheaper to produce a Buick in China than it is in America. It's all an inefficient nightmare that's justified by the cost of production. Which is why today, if you ask the average EV owner why they bought their car, they'd give you something about the technology it has, or how great it is not buying gas, or how they love the image owning a modern EV presents. But believe me when I say these are all fair and acceptable points for why someone should buy something. It checks a box that is important to them. But the problem is, some people don't care about having a car filled with the latest and greatest technology. Most people don't care what sort of image that car gives them. And while I agree, having your car essentially refuel overnight and be ready to go when you need it sounds amazing, for most Americans, people that live in rural areas or rent their homes, it's just not realistic. And that brings me back to the point of this video, why a lot of Americans are uncomfortable with the mass production of EVs. A lot of people, myself included, feel like it's becoming less and less of a choice, and it's a choice that's being made for us based on a false belief. We've already talked about how modern car production, especially electric vehicles, is not exactly eco-friendly. So why do we have electric vehicles at all? But we also now have manufacturers like General Motors claiming that in the next 10 years, they will only make fully electric cars. And the state of California claims that they're going to ban the sale of gas-powered cars entirely. So essentially, in the land of freedom, whether you like it or not, in your lifetime, you will own an electric vehicle. Not because it's better for the environment, not because it's safer, but because the government and the manufacturers said so. And going back Some things I've said in previous videos, if the government wanted to make roads safer and better for the environment, we'd be spending that money boosting our public transportation system, or we'd use our resources to make the production and operation of modern cars more efficient. But neither of those things are happening because it costs money, it doesn't make money. Over the last 10 years, automakers have been getting away with selling us cars that cost more money, are less reliable, and need to be replaced more often. The average American today spends almost $600 a month for a new car, and they trade it in within 5 to 6 years of ownership. This is for a number of reasons, including just wanting a new car, changes in lifestyle, but also largely has to do with the fact that by the time most modern cars hit 70 to 80,000 miles, they need major repairs. And if you're going to spend $7, $8, $9,000 fixing your car that's only worth $10,000, trade it in, get a new one. For a while now, since the early 1900s, Ford has made terrible cars, but recently they've been plagued with transmission problems on their crossovers and sedans. Hyundais and Kias start burning oil after 30,000 miles, Chevy hasn't produced a good car in years, and Dodge doesn't make a car for the average consumer, but they're still garbage. So us Americans are now being told that the same manufacturers who have been producing transportation appliances for years are now going to be scrapping that idea altogether and somehow replacing it in favor of new technology that is not only more expensive to produce, but is just new technology. After almost 100 years in business, GM gave us the Cruze and the Traverse, some of the worst cars ever produced, and now we're supposed to trust that they're going to be able to magically make good electric vehicles by 2035? I, for one, subscribe to the idea that it's better all around to keep old vehicles running. My truck had to be produced one time 36 years ago. There's hardly any petroleum products in the body or the interior. I can fix it myself if I need to, but after redoing the major components once since 1987, I should be good for another 30 years. Does it get good gas mileage? Actually, kind of, but think about how much money I'll save not having a ridiculous car payment. Is it safe? Why? Shouldn't your rolling computer prevent you from T-boning me? If I get into an accident in that truck, it'll be from the downside of the Apple One personal computer. Some idiot on their iPhone driving a 7,000-pound Momobile will crash into me, and honestly, it won't be my problem anymore. But if not, I'll own that truck as long as I'm legally allowed to, and probably a few years after that. I'll spend an average of $800 a year on maintenance, $30 a month on insurance, and if the day comes that the decision to get rid of it is made for me, well, just know I'll be figuring out how to Tesla swap my rolling brick, and giving that thing 1,000 electric horsepower will become society's problem. So I doubt that any of you are still watching this still, but if you're the type of person that bought a Tezzy or one of the other new electric cars, and your reason for doing so is anything other than you truly believe it's a great vehicle you'll own for the rest of your life, or you like charging it at home, well, I'm sorry to inform you that the people who can actually think for themselves think you're a bad person. Not only did you fall for the tricks of the unseen hand that control our society, you helped push it onto your fellow man. Congratulations, you've done your part in ensuring society devolves into a modern dystopia. If you were a real person and not an NPC, you'd realize that the peak of automotive technology, performance, and reliability can be found in a 2004 supercharged Buick Regal. Thank you for watching. Fucking hate that dryer.